Good morning, everyone. So we have a good number of people in the meeting, so we can get going. I'd just like to ask if anybody can do so. Please switch on your camera so we can see, we can see you on the other side as well. And before we get going, I'm just going to introduce ourselves. So Sharon, Tam, and Freya Parkinson are current students in the program. Sean Murray is the head of admissions for MR's Part 2, and I'm one of the two co-directors in the program. So before we get going with other things, I'm going to share a video that we have recorded. So I'm co-directing the program with Matthew Butcher. He's not able to be here today, but we've recorded this video that explains about the program. So I'm just going to share that. Hopefully you can all see it. It's basically goes on for around 7.5 minutes. So I'm just going to play it, and then afterwards we are going to proceed with the rest.
Hi, my name is Matthew Butcher, and I'm an associate professor here at the Bartlett and co-director of the MArch Architecture program.
Hello, I'm Kostas Grigoriadis. I'm an associate professor as well and co-director of the MArch Architecture program.
The MArch Part 2 program is a professionally accredited architecture program that asks students to strengthen their core skills in design, technology, history and theory, and professional studies. It also allows them over the duration of 2 years to develop a critical position and deep understanding of what architecture is and what it can be as a subject, discipline, and practice. The structure of the program is quite simple. We teach the students 5 modules over 2 years, 3 in Year 4 and 2 in Year 5. The majority of the modules that form the program are running in parallel with design, complementing and augmenting the design work and vice versa. The majority of the program is taught through vertical design studios, in which teaching is structured into groups known as units, which run throughout both years of study.
As an example, we will now take you briefly through a student's academic journey over the duration of the 2 years and give you an edited snapshot of the material manifestation or output of the chart we showed before.
In Year 4, about 35% of the Bartlett BSc students join us after their year out for this program. 30% are overseas and the rest from the UK and other European countries. They arrive with a huge variety of skill sets and a diverse cultural background.
Often units start with a short introduction project that acts as a warm-up or dress rehearsal, setting the scene before their design of a technically resolved and complex and sophisticated building project. Sam starts the year off with a cultural and historical investigation into the role of fire as a material process in Swedish culture, and at the same time examines the project's historic, environmental, and social context. The first term is also the time of experimenting with different design approaches, where students familiarize with software through open classes and the workshop facilities. His building proposal then aims to capture the double role of fire as a threat and comfort in the landscape, reframing Swedish attitudes towards risk and dwelling. It explores the wider context of contemporary discussions on both fire safety and the effects on forest fires, on climate change, and results in a carefully crafted building proposition that is developed in synthesis with design realization.
In addition, students take a history and theory module outside their unit settings, where students develop critical awareness of the role of history, theory, and criticism in architectural discourse. Students use independent learning and research to complete a 4,500-word essay on a topic of their choice, guided by a dedicated lecture series, thematic seminar groups, and their history and theory tutors' research expertise.
For his history and theory, Sam's essay aims to establish heating as a tool for conviviality in architecture and reflects on Ivan Illich's theory developed in his book, Tools for Conviviality. He sketches a path towards an architecture of thermal care and argues that our notions of thermal comfort ought to be reassessed.
The design realization module runs in tandem with the design module in Term 2. In 4 sections, students reflect in a 35-page document on the relationship between building design and technology, the environment and the profession through an iterative critical examination of their major building project developed within the design unit. There is a dedicated DR lecture series, and each unit has a dedicated practice-based tutor, an external structural environmental consultancy to support of which is fully integrated in the operations of the unit for most of Year 4.
Here, Sam explores the notion of risk in relation to fire and environmental comfort, as well as discomfort. In 4 sections, introduction, construction, performance, and delivery, the document centers on the design of one dwelling type to establish key building elements as part of a fire vernacular. It explores the concept of safety from external fire and the enclosure of comfort from internal fire. 1 to 50 physical models are used to demonstrate the principles of heat and airflow within the building. Digital thermal models are used to investigate the conductivity and capacity of materials and the connections between them.
As a whole, Year 4 is seen as a preparation year, and by the end, students have often developed a research topic they then study in much more depth in Year 5. In Year 5, students have an entire year to develop a spatial, complex, and sophisticated design project, where they are encouraged to take speculative risks with their projects in order to test the boundaries of how architecture is defined, understood, practiced, and researched. What we hope for is that students start bridging their final year of education with a world of practice that lies ahead. Final projects take many forms, including drawings, models, films, prototypes, digital artifacts or systems, performances or interdisciplinary collaboration.
Sam's Year 5 design project, again, is a portfolio submission. It is very much embedded in the ongoing theme of climate emergency and sustainability. In this, the work takes an interesting angle. Instead of looking at technological efficiency and the performance and other performance parameters, it examines the social and architectural stigmas that surround the notion of comfort. It looks at the origin of the discussion of sustainability and discusses behavior, questioning our reliance on controlled internal environments that are often taken for granted.
At the same time, students support their design work intellectually in synthesis with a comprehensive thesis. Here, students research a specific area of architectural interest that informs and augments their design project. They start by undertaking a simple 2,000-word essay research method study, and then move on to researching and producing a 7,000 to 9,000-word thesis on a topic of their choosing, supported by individually selected specialist tutors, one-to-one tutorials, lectures, seminars, workshops, and reviews led by the module coordinators. Research includes humanities-based critical and historical analysis, empirical data collection and analysis, social science, and environmental and technical or scientific applications.
Here, Sam takes a multidisciplinary view of thermal comfort and how it has become entrenched within our domestic habits and technologies. In this, he explores the subject not just as a physiological condition, but as a concept that is interdependently related to wider cultural and social notions, and therefore weighed with centuries of stigmas and biases, and argues that the climate crisis demands an urgent reconsideration of lifestyle in order to reduce human impact on the climate. Thank you very much for watching this video.
Thank you.
Okay, so I hope this gave you like a succinct overview of the type of work that we do in the program. And I'm going to hand over now to Sharon, who is going to, as I mentioned, is a current student together with Freya in PG11, unit PG11 in the program. This is going to talk about her process of applying to part 2.
Thank you, Kostas. As he mentioned and introduced, I'm Sharon. Nice to meet all of you. And I'm currently a PG11 student at the Bartlett. So when I applied to the master's program, I undergo like 2 different phases. The first phase was to file in the application with a reference letter and also a personal statement. After that phase, the second phase would be the interview phase, where you would need to upload your portfolio first and bring that portfolio to your interview. And there will be 2 interviewers asking you to present your portfolio and also ask you a few questions to know more about you as a prospective student and also your interests in architecture. And after that, basically, the application process is finished and you get notified the results. And that's basically the process of my application. Yep.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you very
you.
much. So Sean, I don't know if you have anything to add. Otherwise, we can just go to questions if anybody has.
No, well, just to clear with the portfolios, you're probably aware that it's kind of 50% practice, 50% kind of academic work. And we're really just looking for personalities to shine through and your personality of the projects and what kind of practice you want to become, essentially. Or if you've begun that journey, fantastic. If you're heading towards a particular type of practice you want to be a part of, then that's really important that we want to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. So yeah, again, we hope this gave you like a succinct and overview of the program and the admission process. And I was just wondering if anybody has any questions for us, basically. You can ask them kind of verbally, and also, of course, you can put them in the chat if you want as well.
Hi, could I ask some question?
Yes, please, yes.
Yeah, so I was looking at the portfolio. While the application is there, there's that form where we submit a portfolio there, or do we not submit anything in that?
I think this for you, Sean.
I think you get required. I mean, I think you first of all you'd start the application, and then you'll be asked by the admission department to supply an ISU link for your portfolio, which is set up as a PDF online, and that's then to be reviewed before we organise. We make then the selection for interview, essentially. So we're using the portfolio as part of the application process. Is that helpful?
So the additional document, there's one stage wherein they ask for the application additional document. So we put in our link for the portfolio there, is it?
Yes, it's on the cover sheet that you're asked on the cover sheet, which you will be given, after you've begun the application process. You fill it in, and essentially it's a ISU link that we kind of looking for. So then we can click on that link and then review your kind of visual images from your academic work and your practice work. Okay.
And also, while there was that how to go about making a portfolio, a small PDF, 2-page PDF that went there. There it said about 10 pages from our academic work and another totally 20 pages, another 10 pages from our practice. So we follow. I've been out of university for 2 years now. So do I still follow the same format? I was just wondering.
Yeah, it's really just to show how practice has informed your academic work and also where your practice is going to. It's really important that we see, a lot of students potentially have done work outside of their undergraduate degree as well. Some have focused on particular types of projects, which are kind of personal projects, private projects. Again, that's really useful, especially if it's related to your architectural understanding and it makes you more aware of a specific area or field of interest that you want to communicate through the portfolio. That's really important. So then we can obviously have a really positive and additive discussion about that.
Okay, but I still keep the same. I can't use more than 10 pages for my my practice.
Yeah, we keep the format the same for all candidates, so that everyone, it's all parity across the board. And essentially it's to really communicate the plans, sections, the urban context, if that's, particular to the project, or a rural context. And then moving into technical details, we'd like to talk about a technical detail, maybe from the undergraduate work. And then maybe, obviously everyone has a wide and varied experience through practice. So it's really important just to kind of state what kind of knowledge you gained, essentially. And we know that some students some candidates might not have got that very particular technical experience. They might have more the conceptual experience, which is completely fine. We do understand that there's a whole range of practices that offer a whole range of different kind of skill sets. And obviously, depending what the student or the candidate is working on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I'm also answering the questions on the chat. I think this one is for you, Sean. I have a CGPA below the requirement because of personal issues. Can I still apply? Would I be considered?
No, sorry. We're only going through. So as I said, there's an admissions department before it reaches me and Sabine in terms of kind of reviewing them. So anyone who's below the entry requirements, then they would be rejected.
Hi, I have 2 questions. So my first, I think you kind of were touching on this, but I did my undergraduate studies in the US, and I have a bachelor in the arts, and in the architectural studies program of my university. So that's not technically a bachelor in architecture. I'm wondering if that's going to impact my application process, because I know there's a requirement for having an equivalent degree. But I'm wondering if, since that's bachelor in arts instead of bachelor in architecture, even though it was within architecture, the studies, if that technicality would harm my application. It's a very specific question.
Yeah, I mean, I think, especially with international students, of course, it's a part 2 in architecture course. So and of course we understand that many of our candidates become our students haven't gained a part 1 because they weren't obviously trained in the UK. And so we always ask for all candidates to contact the RIBA, the ARB, which are our registrational bodies essentially in the UK, just to talk about the validation of it. I think, if it says architecture on your course, but even though it says Bachelor of Arts, I think, yes, we would obviously consider that application. I think it's when it becomes moving away from architecture or that we start to kind of not want to consider that application, if that's okay.
Right. Okay, thank you. My second question, so I'll have been working about 3 years by the time I apply. Would you be more interested in seeing recommendations, professional recommendations or academic?
It's personal to each and every candidate. We feel that we do want an academic reference purely because of how you were as a student, so we can read that kind of understanding. Of course, we do understand that people might prioritize their practice if they've been in practice for many years. But a recommendation is that we'd like one from each area, just to show how rounded, because obviously the candidate would be moving back into an academic environment. So we obviously would like to read a reference from one academic person, if that's okay. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. So there are quite a few other questions, I think all for you, Sean. So how does one apply for an application fee waiver?
I don't know the answer to that question. If I didn't know there was a waiver to the application fee, I think it'd be a question to the admissions department. They hold the rule book, you could say, that's always updated on if there is such a thing as an application fee waiver, but I've not heard of one. If it's written down somewhere, then it does exist. If it's not written down, it probably means that it doesn't exist. But I mean, I think there's no harm in asking the question to the admissions team, because they have the full kind of regulations from UCL on whether there is an opportunity to do that, and if there's a certain way to do that. From if you emailed me, I don't have the answer to that question. Yeah.
Yes. Do you have many international students from a BR 5 years background? I'm not entirely sure what the answer to that is, Sean, if you know.
No, I mean, generally, for the intake for the masters, it's usually 60% UK, which obviously is people who've got maybe settled status as well, which obviously it's a whole range of candidates essentially, and many kind of international ones that have UK settled fee kind of status. And then we're looking at 40% from overseas. And that's really just the broad range. We try and keep it predominantly more of a UK kind of course, but of course it's 40%, and it's potentially that's a moving target, and that's really set by UCL in terms of where the course is positioned. But essentially that's what it is now. It's 60-40.
Thank you. So the next one is, do students apply to the postgraduate modules they're interested in, or do they just get to choose from the one most suitable to them? So I think probably that's for me. So basically, you have to undertake all 5 modules in the program, 3 in 4th year and 2 in 5th year. The thing that you can choose, however, is the unit, the design unit, and secondly, you can also choose your seminar group in history and theory as well. So you do need to do all modules, but then you can choose which unit and group to be part of. So may I ask if it is possible, could you please give us more info regarding scholarships for international students? I don't know, Sean, if you know about that at all.
I think if it's on the website, and if you ask the admissions department, I mean, I always kind of re-guide people back to the central admissions. There is a link to that on the web page where you can ask these more direct questions. You know, UCL does support a wide range of kind of candidates that become our students to get kind of funding and help and support on the course. And there's a lot of funding available, but that needs to obviously be tailored to very specific types of students, essentially. So you need to read the criteria. I think it's a case of asking the email to begin with, or sending an email, and then you can start to get that information.
Thank you, Sean. Are there any page size restrictions for the portfolio? Do they always need to be A3 proportions, or could you alter this to better fit on the screen?
Yeah, I mean, we're reviewing it on a landscape screen. So just be aware that we just need to be able to see the work clearly. If the text is important, please make it that it's kind of readable. Of course, we can zoom in and out of the image, but we are kind of wanting to be able to read it. Maybe you prioritize it's a 15-inch screen, which is kind of a standard, you know, monitor kind of size in terms of a laptop. And as long as it's kind of readable, I would always suggest that you review your document before you send it in. When we review them, we're looking to get to the architecture straight away. So we're not looking for overtly graphical. We really want to see the work, if that makes sense. And we're just looking for very kind of clean, simple layouts and get straight into your design intent and what you prioritize through that project.
Thank you. So for you, Sean, again, is the 6-month practical working experience a must required, or is it shorter practical working internship in architectural firms available for postgraduate application?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a dual question for me and Kostas, but if I started, then maybe Kostas could conclude it. You know, just to unpack the importance of the practice work, it's relative to one of our key modules in the first year of the master's course, which is design realization. And that knowledge needs to be transferable, and it's a highly technical module. And so we need to make sure that all candidates are fully prepared to be able to unpack a building project. And the minimum 6 month requirement is a must, because we need to make sure that there's a rounded person there. Of course, we know we need to start to make judgments on all candidates in terms of how they can what skills are they going to transfer into the course. And maybe it's a question also for the current students, and did they feel their practice work empowered them, or did it help them or support them, you know, from their previous academic work in their undergrad to be able to. And am I telling the truth, or is it there is other skills that you learn through that module as well? Is it transferable skills? Maybe that's to Sharon or Freya.
I did a 12-month, like 1 year work experience prior to coming back to the master's program, and I do believe that having this experience helps with developing your own research interests during the master's, because the way that the master is different from the bachelor is that you're more focused into what you like as a designer as well. And that's how, like, getting the exposure from a professional or an institutional like environment would help you feed back to your academic work as well. And I'm pretty sure that Freya would agree, having much longer work experience than I did. Thank you.
Yeah, no, definitely. I took 2 years out, and yeah, the same thing. You learn so much more from having that practical experience, and being able to apply that in your design work is invaluable.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Freya, Sharon, and Sean. So does every student have their own designated desk space in the studio? So good question. There has been a slight rearrangement of spaces for units this year here in the building in 22 Gordon Street. And basically we have this thing that some units do have a space for every single student in the unit, and others have a bit less, basically, so 3 or 4 spaces less. This is purely because of the way spaces are organized in the building, and the fact that there's a lot of demand for physical space, obviously, because there are so many programs. But the idea is that every year we rotate this. So if your unit does not have spaces for every single student 1 year, they are going to get spaces for all of the students the year after. So I hope that answers that. So I was wondering if for the portfolio application, you have to attach an issue link for a digital portfolio, or does attaching your portfolio to the uploaded documents on the application portal suffice?
We prefer ISO documents. We can kind of move through them more effectively and efficiently, essentially. I mean, downloading the PDFs, of course, there's one, I think there's like one candidate that I've reviewed up to now that sent a PDF, which obviously we review on the same level. But essentially, the ISO document is our first point of call in connection with the portfolio. And then if you're invited to interview, you'll be asked to then submit a PDF, essentially, and maybe you kind of unpack it slightly further for the interview process. So essentially, you know, the first point of call is the ISO, because we can kind of go through them a lot more effectively, efficiently, and then you'd be required to kind of send a PDF afterwards. So yeah, if that's helpful, thank you.
Thank you. So this is for Freya and Sharon. Could you please talk about your opinions of the course? What stands out about the Bartlett program for you? Anything you wish you knew before you started?
I think I really enjoyed the course I'm studying right now. But at the same time, because I also study at the Bartlett in the bachelor and also in the master, I think that it's one coherent journey in the pursuit of an architecture education where you continue, where my research interest sort of stems from the bachelor, and I continue developing further into that specific area of interest that I'm investigating in the bachelor, and I sort of bring it into the master's course. And about the question what that you mentioned, what stands out about the Bartlett program for me? Well, I haven't studied in anywhere else apart from the Bartlett, but one thing that I really enjoy is the studio culture, where I can learn from my peers and my seniors or even my juniors. And I think this exchange of idea and sometimes having crits in the landing where you pass by and you can see other people's work really feed into your own design, and you learn a lot from your peers at school. And it's also the freedom in design that you get from the school and the support from tutors to carry out your own ideas that I think makes the Bartlett program a very independent and unique program to me. And maybe Freya can add on to that as well.
Well, I'm the same as you, Sharon. I did both my undergrad and my BS. No, that's the same thing. My BSc and my MArch at the Bartlett. So I don't really have any experience of anywhere else. But as you were saying, like, you learn so much from your peers. Like, everyone's doing such wild and like amazing projects. It's just constant inspiration, really. Yeah, I think that's what I enjoy about it most. Is just you don't know what people are going to do next, really.
Thank you both very much. So could the work experience be from international firms or related industries such as construction, engineering, so on?
Yes. Yes, it can be. I mean, it's just really important that the diversity of experience develops your practice in particular ways, potentially. And so that type of experience is kind of, we want to kind of nurture on the program, maybe that it's really that full spectrum. I mean, we do have undergraduate courses at the Bartlett. We cater for engineering and architecture in our undergraduates. So potentially them, if they wanted to become our candidates to become our students for this course, would potentially also have worked in an engineering course.
Thank you. Sorry, I missed whether Sharon stated if we need to add a research declaration to our application. I am not entirely sure what that is, but I don't think you do need to add it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sean.
No, I think just clearly read. I mean, what's very good is to kind of do a draft version on your application and then reread it and go through it again. It's really important that you don't rush the application and you clearly read what's being asked of you. They're made as kind of clear and hopefully as simple as possible, so that you really kind of, we want to get that kind of rounded information essentially from all our candidates.
Thank you. In terms of portfolio content, should there be a mention of the use of software and method of work? Are certain software required for the master's program? I can answer the second. There isn't really any specific requirement for for you to know any type of software for the program. Different units use different techniques, so it will all depend on the unit that you're going to get into. And then in terms of the application and the portfolio that you submit, I don't think that's required either. But Sean,
I think you know, of course, all different candidates may have prioritized specific use of specific applications, and that's down to their individual practice. I mean, it's down to, you know, this is a school of architecture where you were trained from the beginning. If there is specific kind of urgency or a need to work on a specific application, you'll be taught how to do that. So you can really just come with a whole fully hand-drawn portfolio and still, you know, be taken as a candidate to become one of our students for the part 2. So be aware that we are looking for the full spectrum here. There's no specific requirement for any kind of applications.
And the next one is, I have already submitted my portfolio and I couldn't find any relevant information about portfolio requirements when I applied. How much does it matter if it does not exactly follow the portfolio preparation advice PDF sent on this chat?
I mean, I would contact the admissions department because there is a portfolio requirement PDF that everyone should have received. If you didn't receive that, please just contact, if that applicant is already in the process, please contact the admissions team, not myself, because they can then review, you know, if you hadn't received that information, that you need to have received it. It's usually available online. As soon as you apply, you'd get that information about the portfolio.
The portfolio information is on the website and is as well in the chat. So both are, you can download the portfolio guidance and it is as well, the link is in the chat.
Thank you very much. So next one is, what is contact teaching time like? So basically, typically you would have a design tutorial once a week. And this would kind of happen for around half an hour. Of course, in the unit, you would also have crits and pinups and presentations, and this would kind of go on for the whole day. And all students are typically kind of part of that. And also then for history and theory and other modules, there's a mixture of lectures and seminars, individual tutorials, etc. So for that, I think you do get a bit more contact time than you would in the design studio. But it all depends on the module and the year, basically. So the next one, would applicants be ranked on undergraduate GPA for admission, or is it a requirement?
As long as you've achieved the entry requirement, we treat all candidates equally, and we're reviewing all applications kind of with consciously across the board. So as soon as you've reached the entry requirements, it's really just down to, you know, as we review each portfolio, we're just looking for that full range essentially, and of course we'll invite as many as possible to interview for the program.
For Freya or Sharon, how did you know when you were ready to go into masters after working? I'm unsure whether to take 1 or 2 years out. Any advice?
I took 1 year out, and I think the decision is really personal one, because I really only took 1 year because I know that I want to study masters back into the Bartlett before part of the pathway to be an architect, and that's why I just took like the shortest route. But I believe that like you can do so whenever you feel that you're ready. Maybe Freya could answer it better because she did a longer work experience than I did. But surely I think it depends on you and how you feel. And it's a really personal choice.
Yeah, no, definitely. I obviously took 2 years out. Although I actually took 3 years out overall, but that was 100% a personal choice for me. I felt after a year in practice that I wasn't quite ready. I didn't know enough, I felt, to be able to come back and do my master's in a productive and informed way. So yeah, it's very up to you and whether or not you think you've amassed enough knowledge to then apply that back to your studies.
Thank you both very much. To add to the question about work experience, is there a specific requirement how this needs to be recorded? I've done my part 1 in the UK, but I'm currently working abroad. Therefore, my work experience is not recorded as needed in the UK. Is this a problem?
No, I think you just want to be unpacking what your role was in the projects that you've worked on as well. We just need to make it quite clear that we do understand if students are working on, or candidates become either students or working on very large projects, they may be just working on a specific part. So it's really important to have clarity on what your role was within the portfolio, within that particular project. If it was a smaller project that was more curated and there's a high level of detail, again, what was your role in that particular project? But if it was if your experience is outside of the UK, it doesn't matter. It's more important what the type of experience is and what your role was within that particular experience.
Thank you. So the application deadline is at the end of February, but the website mentions that early applications are recommended. Does that mean later applications are less likely to be considered?
No, it's just a case that we do get a lot of applications for this program, and so in general we're reviewing them all the time, and so we just need to be mindful that of course we are accepting applicants as soon as they apply. We've got a 4-week process of kind of turnaround for all kind of applicants. And so we just advise you to apply early because the process might take long. It doesn't happen straight away. You start the application process and then you'd be asked to require certain information and you just need to follow through the process. That might, and we are still sometimes waiting for candidates to supply their portfolio. So just be very mindful that you need to have all the parts prepared or as much as possible. But we are very mindful that when someone starts the application process, it might take 3 or 4 weeks for them to prepare their portfolio, but please don't. But there is a deadline to producing the portfolio and uploading it so that we can review the document. Otherwise, the application would potentially be rejected if you overrun a period of time. If you start the application and you wait a month and not actually complete the application, potentially it would be rejected, if that makes sense, because we do need to make sure that all candidates are fully prepared with completing the application process so that we can review the documents.
Thank you, Sean. So what kind of software do students use in the department, and does the department buy licenses for specific software packages? So again, there's no kind of specificity, let's say, or this type of software that people should use is not specific. It depends very much on the unit that you're going to attend and be part of. There is a computer cluster in the building here that has quite a few desktop computers. There are licenses in there for most of these kind of, common architecture software and design software. And I believe things like Rhino, you can also get a license by the Bartlett that you can use, so you can use that in your laptop as well. Correct me, Sharon and Frey, if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Oh yeah, you're covered for most of the software that people use in architecture and design, basically.
Yeah, we have Rhino and the whole Adobe Creative Suite available for download on your own laptop and for use at school as well. And obviously you get more software that's available in the computer clusters computer at school, but you can also download some of them in your own laptops. Like the Microsoft, Adobe, and Rhino, the very basic ones, you can have them in your laptops. Yep.
Thank you very much. The next one is quite long. So I personally have studied architectural engineering at the National Technical University of Athens, so 5 years, a master equivalent. As far as I know, I'm considered a Part 2 architect, and I have already done a 6-month practice in London this year as a Part 2 architect. Sitting the exams of the Technical Chamber of Greece, which I believe is the equivalent of RIBA here, or ARB, which I'm planning on doing in March, will give me the title of Part 3 architect in the UK to the best of my knowledge. So I'm not sure if this master is suitable for me. Is it only for Part 2 students? Is there more information on this matter? It is basically so, as you kind of probably know already, there are 3 kind of parts to accreditation: Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. People that come here, they study for 2 years, are awarded a Master's of Architecture degree, which is the Part 2 equivalent. So if you already have a Part 2 in Greece, and if, as you say, you can just record your experience there with the ARB here and gain a Part 3, then you don't really need to study this course. Like it's not going to kind of add anything to these qualifications that you have, because you already have the equivalent in Greece, basically. So I hope this answers it. If you don't get your first unit choice, can you change in year 5? And is it vertical work through both years, or is it very separated between years? So basically, both 4th and 5th year, they work on the same brief. Of course, the requirements are slightly different, because in 4th year, you have to do DR, design realization, which is a big kind of like technical study on the design work that you do in parallel. And that slightly changes the kind of design output. But at the same time, 4th and 5th years, again, they work on the same brief, the same kind of like site, usually the same where the unit is going to travel to. And then in between 4th and 5th year, you are allowed to change, yes. So you can kind of choose a completely different unit and start over there, basically. Should you include a CV within the portfolio, John?
Yes, I think just follow the questions and just read them diligently. Just spend your time reading through, making it really clear what's being asked of you, and just respond to what the application's asking of you, and that's what we will be reviewing in the application process.
So the next one is about the contact number of the admissions team. We can give you an email if that's okay. Sean, I'll put your email if that's all right. Then the next one is on the units. I noticed some might have a study trip abroad. Does that apply to all, or do we have the opportunity to study somewhere specific? So basically, all units go somewhere abroad, or in the UK sometimes as well, but they all go on a trip, basically. Typically, the site of all projects is there, wherever you're going to visit. But of course, students, if they do not want to attend that trip, they can do so. So it's not kind of obviously obligatory. So you can kind of opt out if you want. And yeah, I think this should answer it. Freya and Sharon, I don't know if you also have the opportunity to, like, if you go on a specific site with your unit, do you have the opportunity or the possibility to do your project elsewhere? I don't know how it works exactly in your unit. So if you, for example, travel to, I don't know, to Barcelona, can you choose to have your site in London, for instance?
Well, last year our unit traveled to Athens, and everyone sort of decided to site their project in the UK instead. So I think it completely depends on which unit you get into. Some unit would say like everyone has to do their sites in the site of the field trip, and they will bring you on a field study, bringing all the equipment as well. So it really depends on the unit. And the question is, do you have the opportunity to study somewhere specific? I think year 5 would have more freedom to do this. Like usually in 4th years, the tutors would ask the whole year group to stay in the same site, but I think it really depends. Yeah. And I think all units have a field trip aboard, and the 4th and 5th year goes to the field trip together, if that answers the question.
Yes, thank you very much. So would there be an indicative timeline for applications, Sean? When will offers come out?
Yeah, as soon as you start the application process, I think you have up to 4 weeks to complete the application. Otherwise, it would be rejected. And then we have a turnaround once you've actually applied of up to 4 weeks. Of course, if we interview a candidate, there is a potential, if we start to build up the numbers on the course that we're making offers to, we might put candidates on a waiting list. And the waiting list, again, we have great clarity in it that we want to make sure that we communicate with each of them candidates that are on the waiting list. And then that, again, it's up to 4 weeks. If it does get extended for longer, we'll make sure that we contact that particular candidate to say, are they happy to be kept on the waiting list? And that's an important part of the process, because there are some applicants, of course, that choose not to want to study on this course and to go somewhere else for whatever reason. So we need to make sure that we get the right number of the cohort for each year, which changes slightly every year. Thank you.
Sorry, can I just ask something related to that? By start the application, you mean from when we submit the application, or when we register for the application itself?
Yeah, I think when you start the application, you'll be required to then supply the information to complete the application process. So, supplying the portfolio, supplying the CV, supplying the 2 references. And it's really important that you kind of get that lined up. So if you read what the entry requirements are and what's kind of needed to be supplied for the admission process, that you've got that kind of in place. Because there is some applicants that don't have some of them parts in place. And then the admissions team are waiting to kind of prepare it so that we can then review that particular candidate.
So you're saying that 1 month after we submit, right? Not when we are putting things
No,
together.
I think it's up to about a month. You're given a deadline. There's great clarity from the admissions team that they will email each individual candidate of a particular deadline to supply maybe the portfolio, or to supply the reference. And it's really important that you kind of keep to them deadlines, because there is obviously a potential that the application will be rejected without actually fulfilling all the admission requirements.
Okay. No, I'm sort of confused because I've started my application a while ago. I haven't received any email yet. As in, I didn't submit the application yet. I'm still putting things together. So I'm confused whether you.
Yeah, I'm assuming if you once you've completed the application process, is that you're then waiting for it to be reviewed. If you're certain that you haven't completed the application process, please, I put the link for the admissions team, which are there to review all the documents before we kind of receive them, to kind of review them, if that makes sense. So the admissions team kind of deal with all the all the admin, essentially, to make sure that all candidates have supplied all the information required.
Okay.
And then we'll review the document. But if you are unsure, please just send an email with your student number, and then we can kind of review that. Because then you have an application number, don't you, for each and every individual?
Hi, yes, I'm in the same situation. As in, I contacted the admissions team, and they basically just said, get cracking, kind of get started, even if you don't have everything. I haven't kind of clicked or like submit or complete, but they just said, then fill it out kind of periodically, and then when you have the CV ready, have the personal statement ready, you just put it in. So I'm a little bit worried that there's going to be some deadline.
Yeah. If they've not given you a deadline, then there isn't a deadline. But I've seen on the application process that candidates have been given a deadline to hand in their portfolios, because I see UCL Select and all candidates, and also the ones that are in process that have started the process. And then I'm just reading notes. Of course, I'm not here to review them applicants until they've completed the application process. As I say, the admissions team are there to give you the advice, and they're the ones that kind of make sure that everything's in place. So the questions, if there's any kind of unknown from your part as a candidate, please email them and ask them, is everything in place? But if all I'm saying is that there is some applicants do leave them, and then I've seen that they have been given a specific deadline to complete the portfolio, and it is up to about a month since the start of the application. And it's just so that you're aware. If you haven't been given that, then of course you haven't been given that deadline. So, but if you are slightly nervous, please just email the admissions team to say, have you received all my documents? Am I just in the process of getting reviewed? And just to say that, of course, this may not affect you, that you may not be aware of, but next year we have a whole new interface where I think all candidates, it's more transparent in terms of there'll be like an online, I think, interface, so that all candidates can see where they are in the process, and if any documents are missing, you can upload them so that we all can review it all together. But as I say, we're currently still on the UCL Select, which is going to be stopping this year. So if there's any kind of potential candidates for next year in the call, then the system will be different, essentially, and more transparent, if that makes sense. There'll be kind of an interface for every individual candidate, I think. But as I say, that's a brand new system that I've not seen yet, but I've read about it. Yeah, but thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Could you give more details on the personal project requirement for the portfolio? For example, the depth and realization compared to an academic project.
I mean, it's really down to the curiosity of the individual and what type of practice that they're pursuing and what their interests are. I mean, we're obviously, it's an architecture courses, so we're looking for a spatial language that you're unpacking. There might be a skilling up that some candidates have done. There might be a small build project that a candidate has done. There might be a more speculative competition project that a candidate's done. And really it's about, you know, there's a whole range, isn't there? But it's really about that's how has it unpacked your spatial understanding, and can that be communicated through the portfolio? So if it was material based, or if it was a particular skill that you learned that you wanted to kind of reveal, and then how has that informed your spatial understanding? Again, it's about using your academic skills from undergraduate and kind of maybe applying that to a specific project. So we get a whole range of different types of candidates that potentially have done a series of projects where they've refurbished, you know, some small spaces, designed a chair or a piece of furniture, or they've done a competition, or they've done just a speculative project from after reading a book that they enjoyed or watching a film. You know, it's very, very, very varied. If it's a material bias, or there might be certain policies from government that have come out that they want to kind of try and deal with within their project. You know, as I say, we kind of look for the full spectrum for the part 2. And so it's really down to your own personal interest.
Thank you, Sean.
John, so here regarding the same thing, here again connecting majorly to my first question. So if the project is really elaborate and there's only one part of the project that maybe I can talk, because the limit is 10 pages, right? Can I not extend that, make it 15 pages and reduce my undergrad work to 5 pages? Is that fine, or should I still be sticking to the 10-page limit?
I think it's 10 pages for the undergrad, or you know, or 10 pages for your academic work and 10 pages for your practice work. It's really just a rule of thumb in terms of to see the rounded nature of that particular candidate. So what's really important is thinking of that, the range of methods or ideas that you have on the same thing. So if you'd been to practice and you had technical knowledge, you've got concept skill knowledge, you've got some urban planning knowledge, you know, you've got some small build construction knowledge, you know, and if there's particular, you know, in England, we have the REBA stages. So different candidates might have different experiences of particular stages in a project. And it's really about showing that, because every candidate would have a very, very different experience. And for the academic work, you know, sometimes we have candidates that their undergraduate work is not what they want to reveal. Of course, we want to see one resolved project. But also potentially someone's done a project, like, as I say, a competition as well, which could be brought into the academic part. But essentially, we're just looking for that rounded. So it's a rule of thumb, if that makes sense, that we just want to see academic and professional work and how have they worked together and what are the skill sets. And it's up to every individual candidate to show their full range of their potential, and where their practice is leading, because essentially the interview questions is really about where do you want to go with your practice, and what do you want from the school to move your practice forward and to engage with new avenues of thinking, of doing, and resolving.
Okay.
Thank you, Sean. So we have 3 more minutes left. So hopefully we can answer all the remaining questions. How many applicants were there last year, Sean, and what was the acceptance rate?
There's about 900 applicants, and we I think we accepted nearly 100, like 95, 96. So it's about 10%. You could say it's less, about 8%. The numbers on the course is relative to the space we have and the amount of units we have, and that potentially changes, but it's kind of fixed in one sense. We have 2-year groups, so we need to make sure that all units, there's a fair distribution. And again, this is all down to UCL and how we break it up. But as I say, it's about 8%.
Thank you. There are 2 people that have the same question. So they have completed a 5-year BE Arch degree overseas. Will this course be repeating the final 2 years of my degree, essentially? What is the way forward in terms of recommended course, if not this course?
I mean, I always kind of address that kind of question by contacting the ARB or the RABA, because, you know, we are a part 2 course in architecture, which is specific, you know, UK kind of registration. It's the second part after the part 1. So it's really up to every individual candidate, if they have a very varied experience, to contact the registration bodies to see what would be most suitable for them, and in progressing them if they want to become a qualified architect. As I said, there's many routes obviously you could take, but this is a part 2 program. So there is an expectation of obviously everyone achieving the part 1, which is an entry requirement or an equivalent to that.
Thank you. So for Sharon and Freya, do you have any recommendation on the reference letters? Are they a combination from university tutors, professors, and practical internship firms? Would you recommend to get letters from course organizer or the tutor?
I think it's different for everyone. For me, I had a reference letter from my design tutor and tech tutor, which are both academic reference, but I'm sure it's different for everyone. Yeah.
Thank you. So could you please describe what the personal architectural spatial project in the portfolio should look like? May it perhaps be substituted with academic research I took part in?
We need to see a resolved your final year undergraduate project. That's really important, that we know what you achieved and to see that full range from the technical detailing maybe of that project to the spatial understanding to the urban planning and the context. So it's kind of the full range of and any physical models that were made or potentially tested if you had a part engineering kind of program, or if you had any environmental input into the design. So it's really important to show that rounded of one resolved project. And that potentially opens up the avenue that you could obviously have a personal project linked to that. Some candidates put in their first year, second year, and third year. That might not be fully appropriate for all candidates. So I would suggest that you prioritize your third year project to begin with. If you've done a 3-year program, of course, if you've done a 4-year program, your 4th year project. Essentially, just one complete project we'd like to see. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Sean. So we are at exactly 11 o'clock sharp. Thank you all so much for attending this. We hope you found it useful and we were able to answer all of your questions. Thank you very much, Sharon and Freya, for answering the questions as well and for presenting some things. And we look forward to your applications. Thank you.
Thank you.